DeepSeek V4 just launched at 1/10 the price of Claude Sonnet. A million token context window, 384K output tokens, and it literally speaks the Anthropic API. If you're an indie dev paying for AI coding tools, this changes your math. DeepSeek is the Chinese AI lab that's been nipping at frontier model heels since R1 shocked everyone in early 2025. They've been closing the gap release after release. V4 is their new flagship. Two tiers, V4 Flash for speed and everyday coding, V4 Pro for heavy reasoning. Both are live right now on their website, app, and API. Here's the reality for indie game devs. AI model cost isn't theoretical, it's a budget line item. Claude Pro is $20 a month with usage caps. Run coding agents through the API for 8 hours and you're burning real money. Scale that across a week, a month, a full project, and it adds up fast. Now imagine the same workflow at 1/10 the cost. V4 Flash charges 14 cents per million input tokens. Claude Sonnet charges over $3 for the same thing. That's not a rounding error. That's the difference between running agents all day without thinking about it and watching your token counter like it's a slot machine. For indie devs shipping games on a budget, this is the difference between sustainable and not. Between using AI as a real tool you lean on and rationing it like a luxury. So what's actually new in V4? Let me walk through the parts that matter for your workflow. First, the two-tier system. V4 Flash is the workhorse, 14 cents per million input tokens, 28 cents per million output. That number should stop you for a second. 14 cents. Claude Sonnet charges over $3 for the same million input tokens. V4 Pro is the heavy hitter at $1.74 per million input and $3.48 per million output. That's still cheaper than Claude Sonnet, and it handles complex reasoning tasks with a configurable thinking mode. The thinking mode is worth noting. You can dial it up for hard problems or turn it off for simple tasks, which saves tokens and time. Most of your daily coding doesn't need Pro. Flash handles it. Second, and this is the number that made me double check the docs, a 1 million token context window with 384K max output. Let me put that in perspective. Claude Sonnet maxes out at 64K output tokens. V4 can output roughly 6 times that in a single response. 384K output tokens means V4 can generate entire files, complete game systems, even small code bases in one shot. You don't have to chunk your requests. You don't have to stitch multiple responses together. You ask for something big and you get the whole thing back. For game devs working on interconnected systems, combat inventory, AI, UI, that means you can describe a complete feature and get a complete implementation. Third, and honestly, this might be the feature that matters most. V4 is Anthropic API compatible. I want to make sure that lands. You don't rewrite your tools. You don't need new SDKs. You don't change your workflow. You change your base URL to api-deepseek.com/anthropic. Swap in your DeepSeek API key, and everything that was talking to Claude now talks to V4. Cursor, Claude Code, whatever you're running, if it speaks the Anthropic API, it speaks DeepSeek V4. That's a 30-second config change, not a migration, not a refactor, 30 seconds. Fourth, FIM Completion. Fill in the middle. It's in beta right now, available in non-thinking mode only, and it's specifically built for coding agents. This is what makes inline code completion work well. The model can complete code between existing chunks without rewriting everything around it. If you've used Cursor's tab autocomplete, you know how important this is. V4 has it built in from day one. Then there's full function calling support and structured JSON output. That's the plumbing that makes agents work. The model can call tools, return structured data, chain operations together, and handle the back and forth that real coding tasks require. Now, the honest caveat, DeepSeek says agent capabilities are significantly improved, and they claim world-class reasoning performance. These are their own words. Independent benchmarks, SWE bench, terminal bench, the ones that actually stress test a model aren't out yet. TechCrunch says V4 closes the gap with frontier models, but we don't know exactly how close. The early signals are promising. The hard data is still landing. One last detail. The old model endpoints, DeepSeek Chat and DeepSeek Reasoner, now mapped to V4 Flash modes, and they're being deprecated on July 24th, 2026. If you're hitting those endpoints in any of your tools, plan your switch now. It's painless, but don't wait until the last minute. Here's what this means in practice. Most indie game dev coding tasks don't need frontier reasoning. Writing a shader, implementing a game mechanic, refactoring a system, generating boilerplates, that's 80% of your AI-assisted workload. And V4 Flash handles all of it at a price where you stop thinking about token costs entirely. You just run the agent, iterate, and move on. The smart play is a tiered approach. Use V4 Flash for the daily work, autocomplete, small implementations, refactors, code generation. Save V4 Pro or Claude Opus for the truly hard problems. Architecture decisions, where one wrong choice cascades through your entire project. Complex debugging across multiple systems. Integration work that requires deep understanding of how your game's pieces fit together. Think about the math. For the price of one Claude Opus request, you can make 20 V4 Flash requests. 20 attempts, 20 iterations. That means you can be more aggressive with how you use AI. You can experiment more. You can run the same task multiple ways and pick the best result. The economics don't just save you money, they change how you work. Over a month of active development, if you're currently spending $50 or $100 a month on API costs for coding agents, V4 Flash could cut that to 5 or 10. That's money back in your pocket for assets, tools, or whatever else your game actually needs. Let me paint a picture of how this works in a real game dev workflow. Say you're building an action RPG. You've got a combat system, an inventory, some NPC logic. You need to add a quest system, not a simple flag check, but a full system with multiple stages, branching objectives, prerequisites, and rewards that integrate with your inventory and NPC dialogue. With V4 Flash, here's how it goes. You open your coding agent and describe the quest system you need. You load your entire project into that million token context window, every script, every config, every data file. The model sees everything. It understands how your combat system works because it can read the code. It knows your inventory structure because it's right there in context. It generates the complete quest system in one response. Thanks to that 384K output limit, it doesn't cut off halfway through. You get the quest manager, the objective tracker, the stage progression logic, the reward system, the integration hooks for inventory and NPCs, all in one shot. No stitching. No, here's the first half. Ask me for the rest. Now the config switch. If you're already using Cursor or Claude Code with the Anthropic API, switching to DeepSeek takes about 30 seconds. Open your settings, change the base URL, swap your API key. That's it. Same interface, same shortcuts, same prompts. Nothing changes except the model running underneath and the number on your bill at the end of the month. Here's a concrete cost comparison. Take a standard game dev task, implementing an inventory system with drag and drop, item stacking, and save load integration. Run that exact same prompt on V4 Flash, Claude Sonnet, and GPT 5.5. On V4 Flash, you get a solid working implementation. Not perfect, you'll still review and test, but it's a complete system you can iterate on. The token cost, pennies. Literal pennies. On Claude Sonnet, the output quality is marginally better on edge cases, but the cost is 10 times higher. For 80% of tasks, the quality gap doesn't justify the price gap. And here's the thing that really matters. When a request costs pennies instead of dollars, your behavior changes. You stop hoarding tokens. You stop trying to craft the perfect prompt before you dare hit send. You just run it. Bad output, run it again with a tighter prompt. Still not right, run it a third time. The cost of iteration drops so low that you can afford to be experimental. And in-game development, iteration is everything. The first version of a mechanic is never the one that ships. You need to try things, see how they feel, throw them out, try again. Cheap AI makes that loop faster. The FIM Completion feature ties into this. When you're working in an existing code base, which is most of the time, you don't want the model rewriting your entire file to add one function. Fill in the middle lets V4 complete code right where your cursor is, respecting everything around it. It's the difference between an assistant that works with your code and one that bulldozes it. For the really heavy lifting, designing your AI behavior tree architecture, debugging a race condition in your entity component system, or planning how your quest system integrates with 3 other systems you haven't written yet, that's where you flip to V4 Pro. Same API, different model call. Pro costs more, but it's still under $2 per million input tokens. Compared to Claude Opus pricing, you're saving significantly even on the expensive tier. The million token context window is worth calling out one more time because it solves a real problem. If you've used AI coding tools on a project of any size, you've hit the context wall. You carefully select which files to include, hoping the model doesn't need something you left out. You paste in the wrong file and waste a whole request. V4's context window is big enough to load an entire indie game project, every script, every config, every data file. The model doesn't lose track of your utility functions because it can see them all. It doesn't make assumptions about your architecture because the architecture is right there in front of it. Now the catches, because there are always catches. DeepSeek is a Chinese company and data privacy is a real concern. If you're sending your entire game code base to their API, you need to think about what that means for your project. Some studios won't touch it for that reason alone. Self-hosting would solve this. DeepSeek released open weights for V3 and R1, but V4 weights aren't confirmed yet. If that matters to you, wait and see what they announce. Then there's the capability gap. DeepSeek trails frontier models on the hardest reasoning tasks. If you need the absolute best, and sometimes you do, Claude Opus 4.7 and GPT 5.5 still win. But here's the counter-argument, and it's a strong one. For the price of one Opus request, you can make 20 V4 Flash requests and pick the best output. Volume beats precision when the task isn't at the frontier. The economics are undeniable. This is exactly the kind of optimization that separates devs who ship from devs who spend. It's not about finding the one best model. It's about knowing when to use the cheap one and when to pay for the expensive one. That knowledge is worth more than any single model. We're testing DeepSeek V4 on real game projects inside AI Craft right now. Not benchmarks, actual inventory systems, AI behavior trees, shader code, full quest systems. We compare it head to head with Claude and GPT so you know exactly when to use the cheap model and when to pay for the expensive one. Please feel free to subscribe and check out the links in the description below.